I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast. I'm here again with Little Libra. This is kind of a part two to the podcast that you heard yesterday on Halloween, our very first one together. I hope you had a really good spooky day. And Little Libra, you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
She is back again. And I ended that one. That one we talked about our relationship and how to host a munch. Really good stuff. This time I wanted to shift the focus a little bit. And at some point during our page, to remind everyone, the she's the original page owner of Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape, about 123,000 followers. She's been doing that since 2012. For about the last 4 years, we've been doing that together. And she's given me the privilege of being able to help admin and put a lot of resources up. These days, it's a lot more memes and and our educational stuff is more behind the scenes in the group, and then in our BDSM education group, and then of course here on the podcast is where a lot of it comes out now. But at some point in the last 4 years, we felt like there was like a line drawing in the sand, and there was like almost two camps of people. Now, I know BDSM history, because I know BDSM history and I've studied it thoroughly, that it has happened a couple different times in the past, but it has happened again recently in the last, say, 4 years. And we identify as traditional.
Mhm.
What is that? What do you think that means to you, traditional, as far as BDSM?
Traditional, in my opinion, is keeping as close to old guard slash the newer guard, because obviously old guard was all men, they were all gay, biker, military, all that stuff. So like when they started letting lesbians in, and then several years after that, it was everybody was welcome kind of thing. So trying to keep basically the foundation that that they started. We try to, keep it like that. So I would consider myself traditional because I try to keep, the words that they use, I try to keep that as true, their meanings. When I use those words, I try to keep their meanings there, so.
And so, what we have often called on the opposite side the next generation or the new generation, um, uh, what are some things that you have noticed about that?
There's definitely less push of education. There's absolutely no study of history at all. They just, for the most part, I'm not saying everybody, but for the most part, they read 50 Shades, they saw something on porn, their boyfriend choked them. I mean, it could be a multitude of things. And now all of a sudden, we're daddy and little, but he's my master daddy kind of thing. So, and there's just, you can be whatever you want to be. There's no rules to the game with them, and I mean, if that's where you want to live, then that's fine. Just play over there.
And so, something else which was kind of a hallmark of that group is confusing BDSM identities and confusing them with kinks, and then wrapping all of that up and confusing that with sexual orientations, gender identities, kind of grouping it all together to where if you say, if you draw a distinction like we do that these are what identities are, this is what kinks are, they get offended as if we're telling them that their sexual orientation or their gender identity isn't valid, and they're not able to separate those things and see them as different things. And so, like the identities, we've covered this numerous times. Identities are things like master, mistress, dominant, dom A, daddy, mommy, caregiver, and then submissive, girl, boy, little, slave. Those types of things those are identities. And then kinks would be things like bratting, rigging, rope, uh, primal play. I don't know, just being choked, being into impact,
Yeah, spanky.
spanking. And then this new generation will have anything. They'll have somebody who's just into spanking be a spanky and a spanker, and they build a community almost like it is its own identity, and around the one kink. And of course, we all know that bratting and brat taming, or whatever they call it these days, that um, has formed its own community around that one kink. And people doing everything short of making a guidebook for how to do that kink, and creating almost like its own identity for that one kink. And um and but traditionally identities were these certain things, and kinks were these certain other things. And well, people of any identity could enjoy any kink that they wanted to. It didn't matter. Your identity didn't mean that you necessarily topped or bottomed. You could be top, bottom, versatile in any kink that you wanted to, but your identity didn't change just because you were into certain kinks. And so traditionally, that's kind of the way it worked. They were these compartmentalized things. And so, um, so we, somewhere in the last 4 years, we are more traditional in that regard. But, then I have been seeing recently that, we kind of are somewhere in the middle. There's got to be like some middle path between the two, because no matter how much we want to be traditional, there's been modern influences that influence us.
Right.
The internet exists, for instance, and the internet didn't exist in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, even into somewhat of the 90s. The internet, for some parts of the 90s, the internet didn't exist or wasn't relevant to BDSM. The internet really did a lot of changes. And even if we rejected the internet right now and threw it out the window, became BDSM Amish and moved into the country and tried to just, live like we were some old guard, some Korean, whatever it was that we wanted to be, whatever this old thing was, we still have been influenced by the internet at some point. We can't change that about our culture. Even if we throw it away now, we still have those influences and we can't go back. So we can't really be traditional, but in other ways, the toothpaste has been let out of the tube and you can't really put it back in there. So you can't be angry with the people expressing themselves as they do now, because they weren't the ones that let the toothpaste out of the tube. Someone else did it. And a lot of the blame that we've seen falls on BDSM educators throughout our history, throughout the last, I would just give it the last 10 years. Within the last 10 years, BDSM educators have done a piss poor job of, they've seen somebody begin to take the toothpaste out of the tube, and they've saw a monetary opportunity, and they've taken it. Whether it was monetary or for their ego, they've taken the opportunity and run with it and incorporated those non-traditional toothpaste out of the tube things into the way that they teach and what they teach. And so the people these days, see they have people who they respect and they listen to, who are just feeding them what they want to hear. And so we're somewhere in the middle, because some of our friends get upset when we don't toe the traditional line, and we say that, well, bratting is a kink, and so people should be able to participate in bratting if they're into that kink, however they want to express that kink. And of course, we still take the traditional line that it's a kink, but people are able to express it. And some people think, well, brats just shouldn't exist at all. And we just can't go back to that point. There's no way to go back.
Right.
The toothpaste is out of the tube and we can't shove it back in there. And so we have to give people, I'll give you another example with collaring. Collaring used to be exclusively MS. It's not exclusively MS anymore. People of all identities within BDSM utilize collaring. And so, we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube and just call for every little or every submissive who's not a slave to remove their collar and put it away because they're not, they're not quote unquote traditional.
Right.
We can't ask people to do that. That's not, that's not going to happen. That's their relationship dynamic, and they're gonna fight like hell for that. They love, because we've seen how powerful a collar is.
Right.
I mean, you're wearing yours right now, and it's a very powerful symbol that you take very seriously, and you should. And if just because we aren't technically MS, why should, who would you listen to anyone if they told you that you should take it off?
No, I
Yeah.
wouldn't, because unless it was you,
Oh, yeah.
obviously. But that's because, as because BDSM was at one time just MS, and now it moved to DS. But as long as the DS keeps the structure of the MS, the M is in control of the S, the S just has limits when it's in a DS. So as long as you keep to that, then the collar, because I'm claimed, I'm not owned like a slave. I'm claimed. So this is a symbol of you claiming me. So it still is a collar. So that's what I mean when I say I'm traditional, because I still keep true to what they saw. It's just we just tweaked the rules just a smidgen.
Yeah, we tweaked it because we have a modern, there's some modern views that make their way into how we do BDSM. So we're not exactly 100% traditional, but none of us can be. We can't be, because there's too much influence there. There's too much modern influence. We're able to find examples of anything that we want on the internet. We're able to find unlimited resources and have I can pull up Amazon and find a Kindle book on almost anything that I want to, and for a couple dollars I can add it to my library and have access to all that information. And we're not living in one tiny club that we just have to follow their rules because they're the only rules that we know exist. We know all these other things can be done.
Right.
And so, like, with my personality, even if you tell me I can't do it, I may still do it. But I do somewhat view you, and I call it somewhat of pseudo ownership, because I still view you as mine, and I view you as being owned. You do have limits, but I want you to have some limits. The limits that you have are things that would traumatize you if I did them, and I still tease you about them because that's just who I am. But I wouldn't actually do those things to you,
Right.
because your limits are important. They're not just arbitrary things that are just something that you just don't think that you would like. They're wrapped up in boundaries that you have because you don't feel safe when those things are being done. or you don't think that you would be safe with those things being done, or they're traumatic to you, or they're things that you're scared of. And you're allowed to be scared of things, and um I've always wanted you to have limits. So we toyed with the idea of MS, but we've kind of settled on Master Little, which is not traditional at all, and which is fine. But for us, it works, and it does it the way we do it. It doesn't disrespect the traditions, but we're in like a middle way, and so we don't disrespect the traditions, but we don't follow all the traditions. We can't. It's not possible because there are other influences at play. So that's just kind of what I wanted to express was, I didn't want it to be too confusing because we're evolving. We have evolved a little bit more down the line. We took a harder stance on tradition initially because of it was the swinging the pendulum, against the grain of all this other really new stuff, a lot of the bratty brat stuff, and the the BDSM test, and
Oh my God.
that
Mm.
their archetypes just you can find it on our in the archives of our podcast where we talk about the BDSM test and our distaste for it. Some anonymous test that has no accountability. There's no one that you can email and ask them any questions about it. There's been no edits or updates to it in years, and the archetypes are all fucked up and wrong. They're not right. They turn kinks into identities, and they don't even get the kinks right or the identity. Of course, they don't have the identities right. And people have taken the test, and they'll claim it's not serious, but they seriously put it on their profile.
Yeah.
I read cartoons and memes that I don't take seriously, but I don't post them on my profile. Like, as that's my profile. This defines me. But people will use it to help define or uh, help establish who they are. I took this BDSM test, and it tells me this, and it verifies this about me. And it doesn't do any of those things because it kicks out totally random results, even if you answer it the same way, in different times.
I did
And
that.
there's no accountability. The archetypes aren't correct, and they have helped further establish these messed up ideas of what a dominant and a submissive person is. And so they've messed everything up. And so we've swung the pendulum pretty hard as traditional. But really, as I've grown, I've seen that test is, it's so watered down. It's almost so mainstream that it kind of made itself irrelevant because they haven't updated it. They haven't made any changes to it. So people are just like, I've seen that 100 times. They don't even look at it on someone's profile, really. New people still, give it more credit probably than it's due. And, we still kind of hit those, but, we're kind of seeing this path kind of down the middle, kind of forging a new way. Something you told me a while back was, how about I quit doing as many negative posts and you start um, posting the types of things that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to kind of shift and teach on the types of things that I wanted to be more of an influence in BDSM or in the community.
Yeah, because we were being attacked by people that they just thought we were attacking them. Like the whole brat community, when we said claiming to be a brat does not make you a submissive. You have to be submissive to be a submissive. You can be both in the aspect of I like to be spanked. I'm a masochist. but I'm also a submissive. So I don't like bratting, but if I like to partake in bratting and was a submissive outside of that scene, then yes, of course, you can be that, but that you don't need to use that as your noun, your title, that type of thing. And we were just getting attacked all the time because they just looked at us saying we were claiming to be better than them because you are not a submissive. So instead, we shifted the mentality of educating what each type of thing is. So maybe they would sit down, think about it, look it over, and we're not shaming them. You can brat all you want to, 100% within your dynamic, your scene, and with the other person's permission. So as long as you got consent, you should not be bratting with other people in a munch because some people don't like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I figured if we educate instead of discriminate, then maybe they would learn something and then see we're not shaming, we just want you to get the words right. That's all.
Yeah.
Be the brat in your scene, but you're a submissive, not a brat.
Yeah.
Brat's your kink.
Yeah,
There's a difference.
Within a scene, you can role play anything that you want to.
You can be a nurse, a teacher.
You can be an alien. You can be,
Yep.
you can be an anime cartoon figure. You can be an octopus. You can be whatever you want to be, and you can role play whatever you want to, because role playing is a kink, and you can participate in any of the kinks that you want to, that are the types of kinks that consenting adults consent to. So anything that anything goes as far as between consenting adults. And so you can be into face sitting, you can be into cutting, needles, rope, bondage, you can be into spanking, anal sex, strip tease, anything you want. You can be into any kinks that you want, including bratting, of course, and or primal play, or any primal prey, or wrestling, or just anything that you want to in a scene. But if you go into the scene as, like with little Libra, if she goes into a scene with someone else, not me, which would be fine. She goes into that scene as my submissive partner. She enters into that scene. When the scene is, she can be whoever she wants to be in that scene with that person. But when she leaves that scene, she's still my submissive partner. Her whatever kinks that she did in the scene doesn't change her identity with who she is. She's still, and if I step into that scene and give some kind of direction, she's still my submissive partner, even if she's playing with someone else. So if I saw something and stepped in and, and threw a safe word in there or something to slow something down because I didn't like the way it was going or whatnot, she's still my submissive partner. So her identity doesn't change. Nobody's identity changes. Mine doesn't change just because she's in a scene. She is who she is, regardless of how she scenes. And then when the scene is over, she leaves the scene with the same level of autonomy that she had going into it. In other words, she's still my submissive partner when she leaves the scene. And so even if she was role playing dominant in the scene, or any other kind of thing, in real life, she's still my submissive partner. So a scene doesn't negate real life, and it's not the same thing as real life. And so, that a lot of people don't see that, or they don't realize that they do something just in the bedroom or in a scene, and they think that it somehow defines who they are as a person. But scenes don't change who you are in real life. So that was kind of where I kind of wanted to go. And wow, we're long-winded together. I think I'm more long-winded than you are. I'm Master Saturn here with little Libra. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
and she'll be joining me more and more um, as we get together and record these on location. She's not always with me in the studio. I'm sometimes like in the early in the morning, late at night, sometimes recording podcasts for the show, and so she's often doing other things. And so um, you can find all of our not safe for work, naughty, and there is some educational stuff on there. I will say there's some educational things on there as well at mastersaturn.com, but it's really where I wanted to be. I was tired of being censored on social media, and I wanted an uncensored place where I could put whatever I wanted to. It's called Darkness and Light because I have a lot of darkness and she has a little bit of light that gets posted. And then you can find all of our BDSM resources, all of the pages. You can find whips, chains, and duct tape listed on there. So it's easy to find at BDSMUnited.com. It was a joy speaking with you today, and I will talk with you again soon. Bye.